When I was competing in fitness competitions, bodybuilding, bikini bodybuilding, there was this whole process that we went through. And people always assume that I was dieting year round to get this look for the stage. But no, that is absolutely not it. So, what I would do is build for a period of months, and I would actually take my body weight up so that I could put on muscle. And then I would be careful not to put on too much body fat in that process. So I needed enough body fat to build muscle. Then when we approached the competition, about 12 to 16 weeks out, we would slowly start to cut the body fat down so that when I hit the stage, the judges could see the definition. Now I'm going somewhere with this story. It's going to tie into what we talk about today. But when I was in that building phase, there were times I ate as many as 3,000 plus calories. Now, granted, I was trying to put on some weight for the off season, but can you imagine? I'm a little person. I'm like 5'4". I currently weigh 120. And I was eating, I think, even up to 3,500 calories at one time and still not putting on a significant amount of body fat. And so you might be thinking, how does that work? I'm barely eating 1,200 calories, Carol, and I cannot lose weight. This is going to be the discussion today, how you can actually be eating more, really fueling your body and resetting your metabolism to lose weight without hours in the gym. So today I have with me Heather Deba. She is a metabolic nutrition coach and the founder of HD Body Academy, which is a company that helps high performing women transform their metabolism for good. I think we're all high performing women, moms, career, all of it. Heather has helped over 22,000 women break free from restrictive dieting and to regain control of their metabolism so that they can achieve their ideal body weight and I'm sure also body composition. They reverse their metabolism in as little as 30 days using her method without living at the gym for hours or giving up their favorite foods. Heather, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you, Carol, for that beautiful introduction. I was chuckling over here as you were talking about we're all high performing women. And it is so true in this day and age. I think every woman I've talked to, they are juggling so much. And yesterday, matter of fact, we had a group call with my clients and talking about mindset and all this stuff. And we were all sharing every single woman. I mean, everyone on there is moms of 3, 4. They're taking care of their sisters or elderly mothers or a stepmother or a CFO and business owners. I mean, the amount of struggle that we have as women these days, it's just so much on us. And quite frankly, we're all high performing. And sometimes I feel like sometimes we don't necessarily want to choose that, but we have to. And then that's just part of our life. And we have to factor that into health and how to take care of ourselves. And that's just a common struggle. So, I mean, what a fitting introduction. It's truly, that is the case. But yeah. And so thank you so much for having me on here. And hopefully our conversation today can educate, inspire your audience, and then they can take on and get motivated and then move on to get a better health, better fitness, and all of that around. And if you're listening to that, and if you feel like this is the conversation that gave you a little bit of that, make sure you kind of go out and give on wherever platform you're listening to the show and give Carol a 5-star review. That's the whole purpose of this show that she's put together. It's so much work. And I personally know that. And so we can help and really achieve what this show is all about and this intention that Carol has, right? So, but anyway, let's dive in.
Thank you, Heather. I appreciate that so much. I'm excited to talk with you today. This is an important conversation because I know as a coach, I struggle to get women to eat enough. They just are really stuck in this diet mentality. Not their fault. As women, this starts very young. So I'm 63 and I feel like this has not changed in 63 years. Like we're still doing the same thing that I did when I was, I don't know, 13, 14, going on my first diet and starving myself with diet sodas and salads with absolutely no protein on the salad, because it was all I knew to do was, oh, you just don't eat and drink diet soda. And here we are, we're 2025 and women are still struggling with this.
Yes, it's absolutely true. And it's really interesting if you look at the history of diets and weight loss. And this is something, started 70, 100 years ago. And if you look at the diets in the 30s, and there is cigarette diets, and there is the keto diet was back then. Can you imagine it circled back and made it around? I feel like diets are like fashion trends, and you have skinny jeans and they go away for a while. And what I heard is like they're start making comeback, and the diets are the same. We're trapped into the same information. Quite frankly, a lot of the information out there are not new. They're really not. They're just recycled over and over again. And people have forgotten about those diets, and then they read something else, and then maybe put a different marketing name on it, and then suddenly it's become a new thing, right? But deep down in the core, it doesn't change. But what I love about something that doesn't change and is constant is because something we can rely on. We can always count on it. And that is common sense about how our human body is really meant to do, and the principles, the fundamentals of what our body needs. And that never changes. So if you just kind of get rid of the noises of all this diets, this fat diets, the population, like the popularity of certain diets, if you just get rid of that, and let's take a look at what our body as human body and female body needs, and you can really find that pattern, and that doesn't change ever. And if you can find that truth and you can feed your body the way it's designed to be, then you've got a solution.
Very true. And that bio individuality we all have too, because I was thinking as you were talking about how, yeah, there's keto, there's intermittent fasting, there's low carb, there's carb cycling. And it's not that these things in and of themselves are quote unquote bad things. And they might serve a purpose for somebody at a specific point in their life. Like keto, I believe, was designed to be a therapeutic type diet. Same with the Atkins diet, was originally for heart patients who needed to really get their blood sugar under control, their weight under control prior to surgery. So there's a place for certain things at certain times, but we weren't meant to stay there for an entire lifetime of being in keto or a certain type of diet. So I love that you hit on that. And now you have your own unique story of how you discovered this. Can you share this with us?
Yes, of course. And this is actually a pretty funny story, funny and emotional at the same time. So, I am doing this today, but just about 6, 7 years ago, and I wasn't this woman I am today. And I was born and raised in China. And if you know Chinese people or Asian people in general, we're pretty petite, and naturally we're pretty thin, right? Genetically wise, we're just skinny. That's the culture. So I came to the US in 99, and I had just turned 17. I think I just had my birthday, came here, and I went from skinny. I was probably wearing a size 2, if I remember. And I blew up and started wearing a size 10, size 12 in about short 8 months after arriving here. And so ever since then, when my metabolism was high when you're younger, I think all the audience and women out here can relate. When you're younger, you're like, oh, I can eat this and then burn that off and not a problem. It's like you don't have to do anything, right? So eventually, when I got into my early 30s and late 20s, the things that I used to do to lose that 45 pounds, it was just doesn't work anymore. Every single diet get harder. It took longer. So at a point where I was eating less and less and less, I've tried keto, I've tried low carbs, everything you said. I've tried cool sculpting. Like, who doesn't want to freeze their fat cell off and be easy, right? And I bought into that, and I've taken pills that I'm not a proud of, right? And just for the sake of losing the weight. And I've worked with personal trainers 3 years in a row, and 5 days a week. I never took a break. I put on tons of muscle, but I struggled with keeping the fat off. And so at one point, I was eating 1,200 calories, and that's my maintenance at the point. And this was just about short 7 years ago or so. And I got to a point I was so miserable. And just one day, and I remember this picture to this day. It's so vividly because that was my breakthrough moment. That was my turning point where my daughter, my older one, and she was little and she's 13 now, a teenager, but I was helping her to make her first batch of cookie from scratch. And she was so proud of herself. And she had this cute bow in her hair. She dressed up and with a white little shirt that I got her from Gap. And she pulled those cookies out of the oven and put down. She's like, Mom, try them. Tell me how good they are. Oh my gosh, they smell so good. And I looked at her and I said, honey, I can't. I said, but I'm so proud of you. They smell amazing. They look great. And then she gave me this look and on her little face. And she goes, Mama, you're trying to lose weight. And at that moment, I was like, I didn't know how to answer her because she'd never asked me that question before. I never knew or even aware of she was watching how I was eating or how I was behaving and turning down things. And so I looked at her, I panicked and I said, yeah, I am. I told her the truth, but it didn't feel good saying that. And then I just saw her little face and disappointed and said, okay, well, I'm going to try it myself. She grabbed a cookie, she ate it. And that little face stuck with me in my brain till this day. And I remember that night laying in bed and I cried. I cried so hard because I was telling my husband, I was like, I don't remember the last time we went out and we enjoyed a dinner where I didn't turn away something I wanted to try, where I actually enjoyed a dessert. And now this is her milestone that I missed it, right? I couldn't share that moment with her. And I remember her birthday before that, I had a sliver of cake, I had a bite. And to me, those were never true celebrations. At that moment, I was like, I don't want to live this way ever again. I don't know how to fix this now, but I don't want to give up. And so I just went on like random searches. And I was like, there's got to be a better way. I've tried all diets. I've tried like literally everything. And then I found this guy on social media and he claimed that he could get people to eat more food and lose weight. And I got on a call with him, or I can't remember, it was him or he's one of his coaches. And I got on the call and it was a guy and he says, I was telling him what my struggles are. He's like, well, I can get you to drink a margarita and eat this much and you still lose weight. And I was like, oh, come on. That's too good to be true. That's your lying. Like, I know I've done this so many times. I can't lose weight. And you're telling me you're going to feed me those quote unquote bad junk food and I'm going to lose weight. And so I had my concerns. And then he says, Heather, I really don't care if you do this or not. Like, don't waste my time. Pretty much said that. And you want to do this? We can jump on. If not, no problem. I don't need you. I was like, what a jerk. It was in my head, but I was so desperate. And that was the last hope. I was like, I haven't tried this. I might just try it. What do I have to lose? Right? I've already spent over $130,000 at this point on weight loss combined during my entire weight loss journey. Personal trainers, drugs, and all of that. So you
Right.
know it, right? I was like, okay. To me, that's comparatively like really cheap. So like, I got on the program. And I went from eating 1,200 calories to 2,400 calories in 2 months by Christmas time. And I've lost 10 pounds in the meantime. And I was blown away. I was like, how can this be so true? This is some kind of miracle. Is this some kind of like dark magic we're talking about? And, I'm joking, but it really, really kind of made me feel like, how come we've never known this? I'm sure a lot of women like listening to this show right now is like thinking, yeah, how come nobody ever taught us how to do this? But what is this thing? And so I ended up, paying him a lot of money. I really want understanding the method and I really want to take care of myself and I want to be able to help my family and to be able to finally be in control of my own body and my own health and without relying on a diet or another program or another cool sculpting session. So yeah, and that's what I did. And so long story short, fast forward today, and that because I learned how to control my metabolism, I learned how to really understanding the female body, and we're running differently from male, right? So that's so much more goes into it. Now what I do every day is to teach women how to get control over their metabolism, how to reverse that, how to repair it to the point where losing weight, it doesn't have to be so painful. It doesn't have to be like you're staying away from your daughter's cookies or a birthday cake or an anniversary celebration. And I think life should be a balance. So that was my story.
Mhm. I love it. I love it. I think it's important to note the psychological part of all this, the mental aspect of it, because not only are this yo-yo diets, the back and forth, losing weight, regaining it, that's hard on our bodies. It's not good for us health wise, but psychologically, what a toll. How absolutely exhausting to do that process over and over again and the frustration of it.
Absolutely. Because, and if you're out there listening, I'm sure like a lot of you can relate. Our brains are really built, our true belief system, our self concept is truly built on evidence. And when I say evidence, is that your experiences. If you lost weight before and you gained it back, and you now have accumulated and gathered get evidence, I can't lose this weight, or caloric deficit doesn't work, or this method doesn't work, or there's something wrong with my body. And if you do it again, tried a different diet that it does is not fit for you, and you said and you saw your friend doing the same thing and they lost 20 pounds while you struggle with just 5, and you're like, there must be something wrong with me, there must be something wrong with my hormones. Then you go on and look for another solution, maybe seeing a naturopath, maybe see a functional doctor, and you work on your hormones, and then you try to lose weight again. Boom, maybe it didn't work. All it takes psychologically is 2 failures. All it takes is 2 for you to believe there's something wrong with you, and or you can't do it or nothing works. So then that's where your psychologically is becoming to believe that's your reality. And psychological toll that you were just talking about, Carol, is this, and you lose that faith and you lose that motivation. You lose that when you see your weight plateau again, you quickly gave it up. And it really affects you for a long, long time. And that's why women would put off their weight loss journeys and to start and put it off 1 year and then 2 years and then 3 years. I literally had a client that recently joined my program that we had previously talked about 3 years ago. I met her 3 years ago. We had a conversation, and it's exactly what she told me. She said at the time, 3 years ago, she said, Heather, I don't know. I've just tried so many things and I don't know if this will work. And I totally get that from a person who's done that, been there, and I'm coaching, and I totally get where she was coming from. So she decided to put it off because she's lack of belief system, right? 3 years later, she reached back out to me. She goes, I'm ready because now my health is worse. I put on more weight. I struggle more, only because I did not believe there's a solution that could be right for me. And I did not believe that my body could be repaired. And it's a belief that, like, just like you said, psychologically, it drives results, it drives your action. There's consequences of those certain beliefs. And now she's back on, she's working on herself, and she's starting to see results. She's very nervous about eating more food because that's all I do. We're about 4 weeks in. She's like, I'm so nervous about eating more food, but I'm eating 500 calories more. And I'm like, I'm so nervous, but I'm losing weight. What? So yes, and really definitely the more you fail, the more it hurts your confidence. But just so if you're listening, truly, truly, it doesn't mean that you have to have that belief system control you, and not necessarily mean that's the truth. So the only thing is you have to go find a solution that fits you, for sure.
Yes, I think that mindset, and I don't like really using the term mindset. It's so vague, but when I say it, people are like, oh, yeah, I get it, because that's thrown around a lot. But really, that underlying belief system is huge. And I've said this to my clients before that I can hand you the best plan, the best exercise plan, all of the things. But if you're stuck in limiting self beliefs, we're not going to move. We're not going to get out of the driveway. Like we have to break through that. And then I think too, with metabolism, it's interesting because women are thinking, oh, I want to look good in that swimsuit. I want my jeans to zip up, and that's all well and fine. But our brains don't care about that. Our brains care about surviving. So when we take ourselves down to 1200, 1100, 1000 calories, like where are you going to go from there? You just go lower and lower. The metabolism down regulates and responds like a survival response, like, uh-oh, she's starving us. And it's something I really try to get women to see, that you can't, you have to work with your body, with your brain. You can't be pushing against it.
Yeah. So I like to you make a really great point. Your body does adapt. Your body does put you to protect you, to keep you alive. So it will do whatever it takes to keep you breathing, keep your heart pumping. That's all it does. Now, that doesn't mean just because you're alive, that doesn't mean you're functioning well. So, I always tell my clients and everybody I talk to, if you want to understand how this works, just think about it works like money, right? So if you're making $10,000 a month, and your expenses and all of your budget kind of goes around that and covers your kids' food, it covers your bills and mortgages and your medical bills and your car payments and all of that stuff, it's covered. And you're just living well. Now let's imagine you lose 40% of it out of nowhere. The economy crashed. So what do you naturally do first? You dip into your savings, right? You're like, let me just keep on paying my bills. Let me find another job, right? But what if 6 months later you can't find that job? What do you start doing? You probably say, hey, let me not spend that savings right now. And it's draining super fast. It's making me really nervous. Let me start to stop paying for extras. Let's not go out to eat. Let's not buy purses. Let's put clothes shopping aside for a while. And if that doesn't happen for another 6 months, at this point, your budget even goes lower. You're like, okay, I need to cut my budget even more just so I can replenish that savings. Because I don't know, what if emergency happens? What if my car just blew out of nowhere and I need to buy a new one? Sure, we all, at some point thought about those kind of, emergency funds. Now, the problem is now because you want to save up or whatever decision you're trying to make, you'll probably start packing on credit card debt. You'll probably start seeing your credit score start decrease. You'll probably start seeing your financials start to struggle, your overall financial health start struggle, right? But you're surviving. Does that mean you're living well? Your financial situation is well? No. So if you think about equivalent to our health, our food, our fuel is that income. Your metabolism is that budget. Your body fat is that savings account you have. And your health is your financial health, the things that people don't see, outsiders don't see, and you kind of ignore. So when you eat less food, for the sake of creating a deficit, and then your body adapts. It will burn fat at the beginning, right? And then if you don't bring that caloric intake back up, guess what your body does? Now it says, hey, let me lower my budget. I'm going to burn less. I'm not going to burn fat anymore because that's my emergency fund in case it ever lowers again, in case I'm sick, in case I need to run a marathon, whatever it may be, right? So, and now you're holding on to the body fat. You wonder why your body plateaus. And then you say, I'm going to try something else. And the only thing that works is lower calories. And if you do that, and your metabolism adapts again. And every time you eat a little bit more, your body goes, let me put that into my savings because I need to replenish that. Meanwhile, your blood sugar is going to spike because your body doesn't know how to handle that anymore. It's a metabolic disease, right? Your thyroid functions are going whack on you. Your hormones can start going everywhere and it's struggling. Your cortisol is going to spike. Your stress level on top of that, your physical stress, just because you don't feel it mentally, it doesn't mean you're undernourished and your body doesn't feel that stress. You just don't feel it. Your body does. Then you suffer from brain fog, lower energy, and all those things we feel on a daily basis, poor sleep, right? And then all of things start happening. And your sickness is this debt you have collected. And now we have to find a way to pay it off. This is where your true health starts to suffering. That's what I think metabolism is. That's why it's essential to feed your body and to eat enough. But I get it, Carol, just like you said, a lot of people have that struggle is eating more. They can't fathom about eating more because they're being taught to eat less. That's the only way to look at it, right? But it's not the truth. So with metabolism, you need to start training your body to build that back up. And the good news is it is 100% reversible. And that you just need to know your body, understand how your body functions, and feed your body what it needs. And quite frankly, it's not a general rule. Like everybody can do the same things and eat the same food and same
Right.
amount and then just repair. So that's the reality and that's the truth.
Now, when we're looking at that process, Heather, I was thinking about this as you were speaking. Now, I know what the process was like when I was doing bodybuilding. We would bring our weight up, our calories up. And my coach would always say to me, Carol, we need somewhere to go when it is time to go into a deficit. And then you don't wind up with a 1,200 calories because you've brought those calories up so high that your deficit even is than what you would anticipate. But now, what does this process look like for your clients? And what I'm thinking about, because I encountered this, a reverse diet. And that's where, okay, you've been in a deficit and now you're going to take it back the other way. We always did it after a show. It required more discipline, more thought than the actual dieting and lean down process. Is that true of your process? Is there a certain amount of discipline or even just mindset that's involved with that whole process?
That's a great question. We literally had this discussion yesterday, so I'm just so happy you're asking these. That's all of my clients and struggle and work with at the same time, right? The short answer to your question is yes, it does require discipline, but discipline does not mean painful. And it can be fun and it can be interesting. It can be dynamic. It can be a lot of things for you. But let me talk about the first thing, part of discipline. And I don't think for when people hear discipline, the word almost equivalent to it's going to be hard.
Yes.
It's boring. It's tedious. It's going to be like require a lot of time. Right. So, but here's the thing. Yes, that could be true. But I tell my clients, and I think this is how I look at it, and I think it would be helpful to you. Think about this. When you are disciplining, you are gathering data. And I typically, when a client comes to me, I don't send them to a cut, like ever, not the first thing. I tell them that we need to get your body running well first to make it high performing. So that way, when whether it's body, like whether it's building muscles or whether it's like losing weight, like you need to prime your body, just making sure it runs well. And so it's efficient, right? So we do that. And I tell them, I say, look, tracking your food, tracking your being disciplined, eating within a certain amount of grams of protein, carbs, and fats, number one, it does few things for you. If you have never done this or somebody who's never really tracked your macros before, and let me explain to you why we do that. Number one, you start being very aware of what micronutrients is in certain foods that you're already eating. Right? You gain a lot of insight by just looking at what you eat. Forget about the amount hitting your goals. Just the fact, like you put your eggs in, this will be surprising to you. A lot of women don't know an egg has 6 grams of protein in it, 7 grams of fat in a whole egg. They think eggs is high protein food.
Yes.
It does have higher protein, but if you look at the combination, fat has more calories in eggs. It consists of a lot of calories in one egg. Right? If you think I'm going to eat 3 eggs and it's high protein, but you also consumed a lot of fat with it, healthy fats. And trust me, I love eggs. It's my favorite food, but it's fats, it's extra energy. Do you need that? So as you're logging, as you are tracking, now you gain a lot of insight and information about the food you're eating. Number 2, is when you're doing these things, you understand how your body is responding to it. You can see if you're gaining weight, if you're losing weight, and if you're eating a certain amount of carbs, oh my gosh, am I bloated the next day? What is my max? Right? Well, what is my limit with protein? What is my limit with carbs? Sometimes my students surprise me, right? And so you can never really know until you push and you're really tracking. This process to me is collecting data. You can't look at it, it's painful. Because without insight, how do you know what your body needs? And this is not for a regular person. Like if you're like Carol, if you're going on another show again, all of those things, you're going to have to do this all over again, right? But majority of women, we are not preparing our body to do these things to get on shows. And that's not what we want to do. We want to have that freedom. So for us, it's like, okay, well, I understand that. It's not forever. But then I know next time I cook, I roughly know how much is in there. I know what I'm consuming. Most women don't know what they're consuming. They think they're in a deficit, but they're not. They think a salad is healthy. It is. But a dressing itself is fattening and a lot of calories. The little dried cranberries in your salad is carbs, right? And they add up and they turn out to be a lot. So if you don't gather data, then you don't know. To me, that's incredibly valuable insights for you. Now, on the other side, making it fun. And yesterday we were just talking about this, and I was talking to my clients and how to make tracking fun. Oh my gosh. And first of all, you really have to change the reframe of it. You have to understand the purpose of tracking, right? It's not make your life miserable. So we started framing, and one person said, tracking makes me understand my food. Tracking makes me understand my body. Tracking makes me aware. Tracking makes me just feeling like I have control and reviews my choices. And we talk about how do we make it fun. You know, my husband and I, we used to do these things, and this is hilarious because he was in the restaurant business for 20 years. And when it comes to food qualities and food quality control at each cut of meat, it has to be precise, right? So you don't end up wasting a lot. So one day he's really good at cutting and just eyeing the amount of food that is there. And one day I was like, hey, let's make it fun. And so we'll say, hey, losers do dishes tonight. Okay. And we're like, okay. And so our goal was cutting avocados because at this point I had measured avocados so many because it's one of my favorite foods. And I looked at it and I was like, hey, I cut this one. This one is roughly 63 grams. And he goes, I don't think it is. And actually I came off to be like 1 or 2 grams off. And he was way off. And he ended up doing dishes. And we made it fun. So, and it really, whether it's make it fun or not, it's your perception, is how you look at it. You do have that discipline. You have to. And people ask me, how do I gain? You mentioned earlier when we start the show, you know, when you are building muscles, you have to manage minimum amount of fat gain, right? How do you control that? How do you know you have to put on fat in order for you to build muscles? But the art of that is how do you control it so that it's not a whole lot, minimize it. So when you go into a cut, that comes off easier. You get in a better shape within the timeline that you get on your show, right? But if you don't have those discipline, how do you know? How do you know you're gaining too fast or too slow? And how do you gauge your food? So discipline is huge, but your why has to change. Your perception of it has to change. And that's when I think it's so fun to talk to my, women in my group. And I'm sure you with your clients and everybody you talk to, and this can be a really fun conversation. It just really needs to be thought differently.
It really does. And when we speak of the discipline required, I mean, you hit it with the tracking, because I run into this with clients too, is we go into a reverse diet or we're adding in more calories, but it's not a free for all. It's intentional. It's very intentional. I have a lot of difficulty making women see that intent because they'll just suddenly add in the foods or the calories without knowing how much. And I find that fats are very sneaky. They're not the enemy. We need them just like carbs. Carbs serve a purpose. All the macronutrients, all the food groups serve a purpose. But fats add up so fast, and they're kind of injected into things like you don't know you're at a restaurant, or it's the extra oils, the extra nut butters, the bite of nuts here and there. They add up fast. So the only way you can know is to take that data in. I'm always saying that. And I always think of Google Maps for some reason. Like you're going to go someplace new. You're sitting in your garage. You take out your phone, you put in the address, and it's going by your current location to take you to your destination. You don't just get in the car and aimlessly drive hoping you
Exactly.
get there. It's like you have to have the information.
Yeah. Without tracking, you really don't know where you're going, and you don't know why your body responds the way it does. Right. And sometimes I'll tell you, when we travel, when we do other things, it does affect our body, how our body fluctuates. But if you don't track your food, hey, we blame on the food. We always blame on, oh my gosh, last night I had a cake. That's why the next day I'm heavier. Or, oh my gosh, I don't understand. I had very little and eat very clean. And why is the next day my weight gone up? Maybe it's not the food. But without tracking, did you know how much you ate? You had that cake. Maybe earlier during the day, you had 0 carbs in. And cake is probably not the best source of carbs for you, but it's carbs. You may not be over. But without tracking, how do you know? So then the results and you get is just completely useless. It's irrelevant. But we care about the results so much, but we don't know how to fix it. Yeah. So tracking is absolutely and people have a hate-love relationship
They do.
with it. And I just learned to love it because it really empowers me. And that's where all of my freedom that comes from is from the months of tracking when I did it, when I put in the work in. Now I know how my body functions. I know when I go to a restaurant, I look at a sushi roll, I'm like, roughly how much is in there, how much rice is in there. And I know roughly in my head, I'm like, oh, how much did I consume? Right. And so I know when I travel, I don't have to track. I don't have scale with me everywhere I go. Nobody does. I think I'm psycho. When I was doing this, I was playing with my food. And when I was doing this program, I would carry a little scale to restaurants
Mm-hmm.
and put my food on there. And the servers would look at me like, oh my gosh. But at the same time, now I don't. And now I can coach because I know my food. I know all sorts of food. I've weighed them, I've tracked them, I've looked at them. I know how much grams is in what and how much calories in what. So that truly gives me the freedom. Think about the discipline. The more you have discipline during that time, the more freedom you actually have. Anything that is without discipline is not true freedom, because without tracking, you're still struggling. You still blame on the methods. You're still 3 years later, you're still wondering why it doesn't work.
Absolutely. You need that information. You have to know where you're going. Now, when someone comes to you, okay, they're going to track a couple of different questions. Do you immediately give them a macronutrient guideline because that's what I do. It's kind of a starting place that's pretty balanced. The macros are balanced. And then from there we tweak, because some people do better with a little higher fat. Some people, if they're very active, are going to do better with a higher carbohydrate count than somebody who is, has a sedentary job. So we have this starting point. But what I run into, and this is the second half of the question, is the judgment, because women want to do it perfectly. And I'm like, nobody comes out of the gate tracking those numbers down to the wire. And it's a lot of learning. So I always say track initially with no judgment. Just put the food in, don't even think about it. Then let's look and see.
Yeah. So, my rule of thumb, very similar to yours, is we track, and we don't even give them feedback on the first few days. But
Interesting.
the reason being is I really want to see what they're really eating and what their lifestyle looks like. I specifically tell them when they are tracking for the first week or so to not change what they are doing, to not intentionally cut out food, to not intentionally eat things that they normally wouldn't eat or eat more because they think they're about to get on a diet. This is their, kind of last supper kind of concept, right? I said, you still
I've
change.
done that.
Yeah, we all have. We all have. But we have to mentally prepare ourselves. That's what we do. But the truth is, the more authentic those datas are, the truer the benchmark is going to be. And I will know truly where we start you off at. Now, to answer your question, like, what is the guideline of where do you start? Do we start somebody at, is there a rule? Yes, there is a general rule, but within that general rule, it has to be very specific. So let me give you an example. Activity in my world, when we're talking about just purely repairing metabolism, right? At the beginning, it doesn't really matter. Going to the gym is not going to make you lose body fat. You may gain muscle. That's a different process. Fat loss is from the kitchen. Like, if you have to choose one thing, we're all busy. We're all high performing women, right? So if you just have that little time, put it into your food. That's what's going to drive the most results right now. But when we look at these things, we want to increase slowly, but with the most amount of results coming in without triggering your body going to panic mode and say, this is excess calories. Let me store that. So we do it in a very, very specific way. Depends on what data we collect from that specific person. Now, the general guideline is this. The hardest thing to increase is protein. Most women are short protein. Now, you can't track and gives you insights, right? So if you look at your tracking, if your average protein intake is 40 grams a day, truly based on your lifestyle and everything else, I feel like you should be eating 120. Let's just say hypothetically. I can't increase you from 40 to 120. You will literally hate me for the first week or two,
Oh, yeah.
maybe a month. And this is when I think about coaching. This is way beyond just food, is that we have to gradually increase. And it has to be easy for a person. It has to be easy and fun to do. So we actually take protein as the first consideration and we increase slowly. That way it's not overwhelming. That way it's not super hard because you can't find caloric dense protein other than supplements, powders. So if you want to get 20 grams of protein from real food, then it's usually around 4 or 5 ounces of lean meat, whether it's fish, chicken, turkey, those kind of things, right? So what we're talking about now is like, if you want to increase 20, if you don't want to get it from protein shakes and bars and things like that, you have to eat twice the amount. That's hard thing to do as a habit wise. So coaching to me has to be when you're trying to increase your protein and trying to adjust and decide where you start, you also have to know what your capabilities are. And being able to do it easily and consistently, it will set you up for success way, way, way better than let me just increase you to 120. And then you struggle for 3 weeks and can't hit that. And we have to repeat, we have to redo it again. And then you gather evidence of you fail and it becomes no fun. And it's just really, you start with a failure. So that's kind of my rule of thumb. You do want to increase it. You do want to start with where you are and slowly increase your caloric intake and increase your protein intake and all of that. But make sure that you are doing it in bite sizes. And that really depends on your insight about your body and your food. And that goes back to tracking and understanding, collecting those data. And it really ties back into the fundamentals. So if you don't understand, you collect your data and you're like, I don't understand it, make sure you reach out to a professional. Like, that's why coaches exist. And that's why we can't do everything on our own. Sometimes we just need a little bit guidance. Sometimes we need to be handheld. So, that's the basics. That's what I say about tracking and where you start.
It's very similar to how I do it. I typically tell them this is where we're going, but we're not there yet. We're going to take our time getting there. We're going to slowly increase protein. If you're not used to eating 100 grams. You can't go from 40. And that's kind of an average of what I've seen. Women come in eating about 40 grams of protein and very high fat. And they think that the cheese, the peanut butter, the nuts is giving them protein. I'm like, oh no, it's giving you fat.
And quite frankly, I've seen the opposite too. I've seen women coming onto the program. They have no problem with protein,
Mm.
100% with no problem. And they have problem with carbs. They can't get enough carbs.
Mm-hmm.
And so I've seen the polar opposites. And now I've found more and more women, because they've gone into low carb diets,
Yes.
ketos, and all of that is very popular nowadays. And quite frankly, it's been popular for the past probably 100 years. And it just made its way back to us recently. But here is the thing, is that now I had a nutrition coach herself. She came over to me. She had IBS, and she's like, I don't know how to reverse my metabolism. She didn't come to me with very, very low calories. It was around 1,700 calories. And she's very lean. She's an athlete. She runs marathons and all of that. She's eating fruits and vegetables, and you name it, by the book, the cleanest diet there is. And the problem with that is she's not consuming enough carbs. And with IBS, you have to have starchy carbs. You have to have soluble fiber in your gut. You have to have this bacteria in there, right? So all of those has to be balanced. And so we end up working on carbs. And that's what I see more and more these days. It's a lot of people falling into the trap of eating clean, and eventually that actually hurts their guts than actually helping. So she did that, and she struggled with carbs. And I had to train her to eat dirty just to get over that mentality, that mindset she had built over the years about carbs, the perception of carbs. And now she's better. She doesn't have IBS anymore. She's eating more food as she's feeling her body more. And she runs her marathons with more energy. She's like, oh my gosh, what a difference. So not protein is great, but it doesn't always mean it's the right thing for you. It depends on what your body can tolerate. So collecting data. I mean, if anything you listen to and got out of this call is just collecting data, really having that discipline, make it fun, right? And just start understanding your body. That's the best investment you can make. You're going to be paying for it anyway. You're paying with your time, or you have somebody pay for somebody, coach you and teach you how to do those things and save you a ton of time, or you pay with consequences of health and poor metabolism and weight gains. So regardless, you're paying for it. You might as well just pay with the diligence, pay with the patience, so you can get the results faster. And that's
Very, very true. When I started my journey, it was because I wanted to do a show and knew absolutely nothing about how to get there. And I was thin. I was a runner, a marathon runner. And I had to hire a coach. I remember hiring that first coach. And then over the years, I had more than one coach. I invested thousands of dollars into coaching and what I learned through the process. So it can really help you get from, point A to point Z a lot quicker than, going around in a circle. The carbohydrates, great point, because what I'm seeing in the space is a lot of fear mongering concerning carbohydrate. I can't eat that. I'm going to get candida. Oh,
yes.
I can't eat that. I'm going to have SIBO. Oh,
Yeah.
no more grains. I'm like, well, you've just cut out micronutrients and fiber, and a major energy source, especially if you are, if you're a person, you're out there hiking, playing tennis, your body needs that energy. I see the same thing. It's often the fats are very, very high. The carbs are very, very low. And that, not the best thing for everyone. So great point with that. Absolutely. Well, as we start to wrap up here, Heather, I want to be respectful of your time. Was a couple of questions. Was there anything that I didn't ask you'd like to share with the listener, and how can they learn more about you and what you do?
I think we had a great conversation. I had a lot of fun. Of course, you and I can sit here and talk for the next 2 days and still
Yeah.
not running out of things we just want to talk about, the important things. But I think this is going to be enough to help, the listeners out there, if you're listening, to get started, maybe having a different perspective on tracking, maybe a different perspective on food and your mindset and all the failures you've had, and gave you that little bit motivation, that inspiration, so you can move forward. And How to find me? I like to keep things really simple. Instead of a lot of options, nobody's going to remember. So if you want to get a hold of me, if you have questions about what I do or how to do certain things about your health and you want to get insights just to pick my brain, go to Instagram, and my handle is at Heather Deba. So it's just my first and last name, Heather, HeatherDeba. Again, that's Heather Deba, Deba. And you can just DM me with the word fitness, and I will start a conversation. I'll personally respond to you, answer your questions, and give you a free training that I have for metabolism and how to reverse it in as quickly as in 8 weeks. And that usually is for my paid clients, but as a gift to you, since you listened to us to this very end and you liked what you heard and to inspire you, to help you, message me the word fitness and I will send that to you personally.
Thank you so much, Heather. I'll make sure all of this is in the show notes. And I encourage you, if you're watching, listening, go ahead and take Heather up on this offer. It's a wonderful opportunity to learn more, dive in just a little bit deeper, and see what's right for you. So thank you so much again, Heather, for being on the show. And to our listeners, wherever you are in the world, we wish you every blessing. Bye for now.